Hi everyone, welcome once again into our channel, and today we are going to be improving the Ruby Emerald starter deck using the cards we pulled from our booster box. We did pull a vast amount of Ruby Emerald cards that were actually very good, like Maleficent, the 9-drop dragon, but they don't really fit the deck, and like Mickey and Genie, and we have like Steal from the Rich. Iago might actually make it in, so I'll probably take one of those, but basically like there's a lot of really cool Emerald and Ruby cards. I just don't think they kind of fit what this deck is going for. There are a couple more things that I kind of have off to the side that like we might be able to consider. This is going to be kind of a draft one. Also, I will say I have improved this deck before on my own. I have my own version of it, but it was a lot, I don't want to say better. I just pulled more of the things I wanted. So in that other version, I managed to get 4 Flynns, and I managed to get all the way up to 3 Cuscos, where this deck only has 1. But basically, I want to kind of go over the strengths and weaknesses of this deck as it is, and then what I would do to improve it, and then obviously use the cards that we currently have to improve it. So the first thing I want to go over with this build is you don't have access to pretty much any draw at all outside of your Mad Hatters, which become very, very important for that reason. They basically replace themselves unless your opponent has hard removal, such as their own Dragonfire or Let It Go or something like that. So if they have to challenge your Mad Hatter, you're in a great spot. You're drawing cards. It's kind of what he's doing, giving you 3 lore, giving you some card replacement by forcing your opponent to challenge into him and then get banished. It's pretty good. But outside of that, you're more or less working with what you have. So the objective here is to quest for as many points as possible. That is your utmost goal. So the way the deck is right now, they do give you 5 1-cost characters, which is great. We need to be curving efficiently in this deck. I feel it really comes alive kind of when you hit your 5s and 6s and 7s, things like that. More 5s, because 7 you want to kind of shift into this a lot, and you don't want to play him for his 7 in this version of the deck. But there have been games where I played this deck and I felt really behind in the early game, but then actually managed to come back because of 3 lore here and like 2 lore evasives that they can't challenge. So I want to lean into that where your opponent either has to challenge and then they're challenging things like this, or they can't challenge things like Pongo and then they're big sad. So the weaknesses with the deck, I will say, Vicious Betrayal, he's got a sword, are not super powerful here. I understand the point of like raising your Mad Hatter's strength and then challenging into something and banishing it, which is pretty nice, but you really kind of want your opponent to be challenging you. You don't want to put your Hatter at like 1 and then they can cannons it. Like, you want to keep your Hatter pretty healthy. You want to keep a lot of your characters pretty healthy and kind of have your opponent trying to challenge into you. The other thing is Mother Knows Best. It's a very strong removal card that will help you win the tempo game by either singing with a character like Aladdin, who's kind of done his job already, or like Iago if you don't want to use his ability, bouncing something to their hand, and then you get to be up on tempo because you can like develop a character in the same turn and now they're behind. 3 I think is a little too much because we don't have access to draw. So we don't have anything that's making up for the fact that we're essentially losing a card. So we're trading a card for tempo, which is good. I just think 3 is a little heavy. So in my version of the deck, I'll be cutting down on it a little bit and replacing it with a better alternative, which is Genie, a little bit more expensive, but you get to keep the card, right? So that's good. Stampede, I want to try a little bit more. I don't think it's very strong. Obviously, Fire the Cannons is just a all-around better card for no reason. But this paired with Flynn, I feel is where it will shine. So your opponent will challenge the Flynn, they'll discard a card, and now because they've discarded a card, you can basically trade your Stampede and your Flynn for their character and a card in their hand, so you go 2 for 2, and you get 2 lore out of the Flynn. It's pretty good, I like that. The other card I feel like is an insta-cut is Stolen Scimitar. Again, we don't really want to be giving strength to our characters, even if they are Aladdin. Aladdin having 5 is usually good enough to get the job done. 2, bringing it up to 4, it's okay. Same with this, bring this up to 4. It's okay, but it's not something that you're really kind of looking for. We could just do Meg, right, which is generic, give 2 to anything, and also leaves a character behind. I feel like this is a superior option to this, even though this has multiple use. It's a card, again, in a deck where we're not drawing, where if you top deck this, you're not happy. If you open with this, you're also probably not happy. There was a game I played with just the starter where I played out my Shield of Virtue and my Scimitar, and then I was like desperately looking for cards to ink, and I was like, man, I wish I didn't play this because I like used it once and then just sat there. It was like, it didn't do anything for me. Shield of Virtue, I still don't think it's the best card ever, but it is strong. And in a deck where you have things like Flynn, sometimes you want to quest for 2 and ready him, and then quest for 2 again, and then make your opponent challenge. So it does give you utility, and you get to use your characters a little bit more this way. Things like Stitch, you can quest and ready Stitch, and then they can't challenge. Or if you live the dream, you can shift Aladdin, smack something, ready him, smack something else. And then you get to make them lose 4 lore, you gain 4 lore, which is very strong. That's almost never going to happen unless your opponent just completely forgets that big Aladdin as a card. I think it's good. I think it has a place. I think 2 is a fine number. You don't want to go above 2. It is inkable if you don't need to use it. I think it's alright. You could cut this if you find that you don't like it. I just think it's something that you should experiment with and play around with before you completely dismiss it, which is kind of what I was doing at first, but then I decided to try it, and I actually wound up liking it, which is nice. Donald Duck, solid stats, just a vanilla. Aladdin, we're going to keep. We could increase our Aladdin count. I think 2 is alright. The reason I like this Aladdin is because of Ward. So it makes it a little bit easier to play this on like 4, and then turn 5, have it still be sticking around, and then playing your Aladdin, the Heroic Outlaw, over him. So it kind of like, not guarantees, but makes it a little bit safer to climb up into your 7-cost Aladdin, where this one is, they'll just kind of blow him away because there's no ward. They can target this with whatever they want, but we will be playing more of this because the -1 lore is very strong. LeFou is just shield on a body. Ready's a character when it comes in. It's Fan the Flames, but with a body that's left behind. I'd probably still leave this at 1. This is another card you could theoretically cut. I'll be keeping it because I didn't pull enough to really replace it. Meg, same kind of thing. It is replaceable. She is good. I probably won't be removing her just because I didn't really pull anything. I will be cutting Cruella, because I found a lot of times, at least with me, when I play against this deck, I usually don't challenge her unless it's beneficial. So like, I'll challenge when them returning a card to my hand allows me to replay it healed, or allows me to just replay it in general, and I don't really mind that it got returned to hand. There's actually a game I played recently where I challenged into my opponent's Cruella, and they put a character back in my hand that I then immediately played as ink because I actually needed ink. And I was like, man, I really hope, I think it was like Mickey too, I was like, I hope that I swing with Mickey and they bounce it just so I can play it as ink, and then I could play something else. And it's actually exactly what they did. They were like, oh, I guess return it because my effect goes off. They kind of feel obligated to do it because that's like the reason why you play the card, is to return your opponent's characters after it's banished. And I just made it work for me, and I feel like your opponent, if they're smart, can just make this work for them too often for me to like it. That might change. It might just be, you know, a small window of my experience, and it might not be the overall gameplay in general. But like I said, as of right now, not too crazy on it. The next card is Horus. Just solid stats, definitely cuttable, but is good if you don't have cards to replace it. Peter Pan, Never Landing. I'm keeping this in just because it's evasive, and it challenges up into things like Pongo and Tank. Also very cuttable, especially once we add things like our own tanks, but I think it will stay for now. Aladdin I think is great. It's weak for a 3 cost, that's okay, because you're taking a lore from them, which is great. And then it also threatens Heroic Outlaw coming down off of a shift. So whenever you play a small Aladdin, your opponent always has to think what happens if they have Heroic Outlaw as a follow-up. It's very scary. I lost one of my tournament rounds kind of because of that. My opponent played this. It was like, can I attack if I shift? And I was like, no way he has it. And then he played it. So things like that, you have to be like, oh, okay, they have it. I have to play around it and not get absolutely blown out by it. Iago is good. Like I said, I might actually increase the number of Iagos. I'm surprised with how strong Iago is. A thing that makes him really good is shield, because you can use Iago, target something that you know will swing into like your Hatter and be banished or trigger a draw, and then you use shield to ready Iago so that they cannot swing into him. So I've used it in evasive mirrors where I've targeted things like Pongo, and I'm like, okay, well now your Pongo has to swing into like my Pan or one of my larger characters, and then I'll ready the Iago, or actually I've Mother Knows Bested it back to my hand just to get him off the field, and then my opponent has to suicide their character into whatever I've left open for them to kind of do so. It's not the most efficient way of removing, especially in a deck that plays Dragonfire, but it is interesting. It makes them swing into things like Flynn. It makes them swing into things like Mad Hatter and draw you a card, where like Dragon's Fire kind of doesn't do that. It like opens up a little bit more trickiness. Not necessarily the best. It's not something that you necessarily have to run. I just kind of like it. I like to get a little tricky and mess with people a little bit, so I'm going to keep it for now. It is something that could be cuttable though. Definitely, it's not a must run. Mickey, same thing as Jasper, just in reverse. I'm sorry, Horus, just in reverse. It's a 3/4 instead of a 4/3. This stat line is better because you can trade with 2-cost characters like Donald Duck and Liv. Where this one, if their character is a 3/2, it will be banished. Where their character is a 3/2 here, it lives. It just trades with more things. I like it. It is cuttable because again, it's just vanilla, so it's not really mandatory. But we'll get into that in a bit. Jasper I like a lot. Does lack a little bit of strength, which is why we still have things like Megan here. But Jasper stopping your opponent from questing is pretty huge. Towards the end of the game, when you're both towards the end of your winning lore, like you're at 18 to 19, being able to use this to stop them from questing with a freshly played character and then use something like a Dragon's Fire to banish something else is big. You want as many ways to interact with your opponent's characters as possible, because there are a lot of games of Lorcana that are won when they're like 19 and they go Duke of Wesselton and you're out of removal and they just go quest for 1 on the following turn. So anything that like helps you stop them from doing that while also giving you lore and progressing your victory is very strong. He gives you a point, potentially takes a point away from the opponent. That's great. That's kind of where this deck wants to be when it falls behind, because again, you don't have draw, so you need trickier ways of doing things. Pongo is just a solid evasive character. Nothing crazy. Tinkerbell is better than he is. It's literally the same card, but also gives another character evasive, so we'll be playing Tinkerbell. I don't know why it's like that, but that's the way it is. We'll actually probably end up playing both in this version of the deck. Scar's pretty good. Scar can trade up with some characters, but is another one of the cards that I'm looking to cut, just because things like Maui are better, and I'd rather have hard removal. Steal from the Rich, I'm convinced, is a great action, just probably not in this build, because we're not flooding the board and then smacking all their lore away. You kind of want this in like aggressive mirror matches. So if you're both playing Emerald Amber, you might want to run this in like that type of a deck, where you can then be like, oh, instead of me like winning or challenging all your characters, I can just quest, get close to winning, take your lore away. Now you're behind, and now you have to start making trades where I'm going to start getting the victory, right? Mad Hatter, fantastic card. The only time you cut this below, I think, 3 is if you're playing Cusco and you just don't have the room. I kind of like playing both because they're both very strong. Captain, good vanilla stats, but you want to play something like Cusco over this. Stitch, I'm probably going to keep in because 3 lore. Being a 6 cost, not fantastic, but 3 lore is great. I do like Rapunzel as well, but she is on the weaker side. She has solid stats. 2 lore is great. Taking a lore from your opponent is pretty good. I just think things like Genie are better, because with Genie, I believe, Genie is weaker but evasive. So you can play Genie, bounce a character, and has evasives, getting you lore, and it removes the threat. It's just better options. I think Rapunzel gets unnecessary hate. I don't think it's a really bad card. In the starter, she's very solid. I've always felt good when I played her, like in a starter deck for starter deck scenario, but once we're moving up into like more constructed things, she kind of loses some of her strength, right? And Aladdin is amazing. You play an Aladdin in Control, you play an Aladdin in this. We're going to add another Aladdin, so that's kind of where we're going to go from here. So, all right, let's hop into these changes and start making things change. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add our Flynns, which are our 2-cost cards, and the first thing I'm going to take out is he's got a sword, just because, again, we are not really trying to raise our character's strength. We're looking to win the game, so we're going to play 2 of these over that. Then we're going to move on to our Cheshire Cats, and for Cheshire Cat, we're going to remove the other, I'd say, subpar action and Vicious Betrayal. I think we should maybe remove Stampede as well, because again, it's not fantastic. I'm going to keep it in because I personally want to test it. I think 2 might be a little too low to really give it a fair test, but I really want to see the interaction between Stampede and Flynn. It may just prove to not be enough, but I feel like a lot of times I play Flynn and I don't want to quest with Flynn because they get to kill it for free, even though they are discarding a card. So I'm wondering if this combination will make it feel a little better. Feel free to cut Stampede in your decks. Again, I don't think it's a very powerful card by any means. It's just a good removal tool after they've kind of challenged one of your characters. But you don't want to play it like, let's say you have Duke, and they challenge Duke with like a Mickey and they kill the Duke for free, that's not when you want to use Stampede, because in that scenario, your Stampede, you're trading Duke and Stampede for like a Mickey, right? But if something like Hatter, where you're drawing a card, Hatter replaced himself, and then you can finish them with Stampede, that's fine. Flynn discarding your card, and then you finish it with Stampede, that's fine. So it has some synergies with this color. Obviously, it's an Emerald card, should have Emerald synergies. That's why I'm trying it. Feel free to not try it if you don't want to. I totally don't blame you, I get it, but that's what I'm doing. Alright, next we're going to cut our Cruella. I have to find a sleeve for her, because she's foil. For our Aladdin, so we are going to play 4 Aladdins. I think he's good. And then I wanted to kind of increase the Jaspers, right? So I want to most likely cut Horus. 4 Jasper may be a little bit much, but I'm going to try it, and we'll see how well it does against the Steel Sapphire deck that we built. So yeah, so we're going to play 4 Jaspers, just because I like his ability. He's got good defense, pretty decent. Or I should say willpower. Next we're going to play Hans, and I think we're going to cut our other Horus for Hans. Now, ideally, I've seen a lot of decks play Hans at larger quantities. I like playing the whole 4, actually. And I think that's correct. Just because a 4-drop that has so much lore in a color that has a lot of other characters that has the lore, I think it's very strong, right? Because you have 3 here, 3 here, 3 on Cusco. Like, you start making stuff happen pretty fast just by questing with all of these characters. I think it's really strong. If you have more Hans, absolutely play him. I have Hans in my other boxes, but again, I didn't pull it in this one, so I didn't want to go too crazy. So we're going to put our Hans here for now. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add 4 Tinkerbell. And Tinkerbell is basically, like I said, Pongo, just a little bit better. So I think for sure we're going to cut Steal from the Rich, right? Because it's not a card that we need to run in this style of deck. We're going to play Tink. We're going to cut a Pongo for another Tink. Just because, again, she's better Pongo. I think we're going to cut the Scimitars, right? Because we already said those weren't great. And those are the easy cuts right now. We got the easy cuts out of the way. We're going to have to start making hard choices now. So we're going to do that. And we'll once again kind of shift everything over. This is going to become a little bit higher cost of a deck, you'll see, as we kind of make changes. Although we are still trying to curve somewhat and like hit 1s on 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4. We are going to open it up to the fact that, you know, maybe we just kind of live at 4 and 5 because our evasive Tinkerbells and Pongos and things like that really just bring the game home, and we just don't fall too far behind early, and then we should be okay. You could also play Gaston as well. Gaston is just great removal as a 4-2. It challenges things like Hatter and Cusco and gets rid of them. And it basically gets rid of any early game character that your opponent plays. It's something I was considering. I don't think it's really for this deck. I think it's more for the controlling style of decks that people are using Ruby for right now. I don't know if it really fits into here, but it could. It could be something that we consider. Next, I'm going to cut 1 Mother Knows Best, because I don't think 3 is the right number. I think 4 or 2 is okay. We're going to play a Dragonfire to go up to 4. This may not be what you want to do in a full version of any red deck. 4 might be a little bit heavy, especially because they're not inkable. But with the cards we have, I think it's fine. It's good removal. We just get rid of it. Next, we're going to start with our 5s. So we're going to remove the Scars. Good card, but you know what's better than Scar? Our friend Maui. Maui is like a Dragonfire. He can challenge almost everything, and he has Rush, and he's great. Next, we cut the Captains. And we put in a Cusco. And our 4th Mad Hatter. Again, I'd play more Cuscos here, but unfortunately, I did not pull any in these 2 boxes. We only pulled the 1, and we're just going to keep it like that. So the next ones are kind of our high-costed characters. So because of that, we're going to have to cut the Rapunzels, just because I don't want to cut too many low-cost things to play too many high-cost things. So we cut the 2 Rapunzel for 2 Genies. And these cards are absolutely fantastic, hence why they're super rare. Comes in, bounces one of your opposing characters to their hand, and has evasive, so it's hard for them to challenge. We're going to cut the third for our second Aladdin. I am currently, I think, keeping the Stitch. I may change that. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, we might even cut the Iago and just straight up play John Silver here. Yeah, we might do that. As much as I like Iago, I think I was originally going to cut the Mickeys, but I kind of want to keep the Mickeys. Oh, you know, we have 3. This is a tough choice. We have some things. So basically, the cards I want to add are Mother Gothel and 2 John Silver that we managed to pull through our 2 boxes. John Silver is very strong. Make something reckless, which basically makes them have to challenge and almost kill themselves. And then every time Silver quests, he also makes somebody reckless. So there was actually Liam from the Lumineers was telling me in his game, he was like, oh, I'm going to win. So he quested a lot, got to like 18, 19 lore, and was like, oh, I just need to stick like a character and then win. But his opponent had Silver, so his opponent played Silver, gave it reckless, it had to like charge in and die. And then every character he played after that, the opponent would just quest with Silver and give it reckless again. So like every single card that he played wouldn't get to live the turn to win in the game because Silver just kept it locked down. And I think it's really great. I think Silver is actually a little bit better than Mother Gothel in this type of deck, just because you play it and immediately has an impact, which is phenomenal. And then you continue to have an impact, and he has a pretty good body. So Gothel is something I wanted to try in like a Steel Emerald, where you can quest and then slam Gantu, and then hopefully nothing they have can challenge her. So they can't challenge and they can't quest. And with Steel's removal, you should be able to keep their bigger cards at bay and then only leave them with the small ones, and that's why the combo should work. She's good. She just locks them out of questing altogether. Very, very solid. They both have their advantages, but I think I'll cut 1 Mickey for now for 1 John Silver. And then, let's see, what else could we gotta take out at least 1 more for John Silver. I don't know if we're gonna play the Gothel too. And we could cut the Stitch, but I like the Stitch, so I'm probably gonna keep him in because I'm biased. I was actually thinking about playing more Stitches because we pulled like 3 more. I think 1 or 2 is fine. We're already playing a lot of 6-drops, especially once we put this in, or once we put these in, even if we just put this one in. It's kind of a lot. So I think the last card we're gonna cut, could cut LeFou. Could cut Donald too, but I kind of like that we have some small drops. Oh, we can cut a Meg. We don't need 3 Megs. So we'll cut a Meg. We'll play a second John Silver. There we go. We play 2 Megs, help buff our characters when we need it. We have some of our tricky stuff still intact. If we really wanted to, we could probably cut Iago for Mother Gothel. I think that might be a little bit too heavy because then we're running 6 drops and 5 drops, a lot of 5 drops. Might be a little bit heavy. And the one of Gothel feels kind of weird, especially since they both quest for the same amount. So for now, I think we'll leave her out. It's definitely something to consider. She's very strong. So is Rapunzel. Rapunzel's also strong. It's just you don't want too many cards here. This is already kind of pushing it, like this whole bottom row being what it is. This is where you kind of hit, but you need some early to get you there, right? So we're going to keep Stampedes, try that out. Our uninkable count is 2, 3, 4, and then we have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Not bad. That's one of the problems I found when I was building this deck before, because I had 3 Cusco, or like 4 Cusco, and there was just a lot of inexpensive cards and really strong cards that are just not inkable. And again, we don't have draw, so it makes it very tough to kind of find that balance of uninkables and inkables in this type of color combination. But yeah, this is what we're going with right now. I think it should be strong enough. We'll see. I might get absolutely plastered by Steel Sapphire, but only time will tell. But yeah, guys, so that's going to do it for this video. I hope you liked the deck analysis, going over which kind of doesn't work with the colors, what does, and the changes that we made with the cards that we pulled. If you have any suggestions on the deck, if you have your finished version of a Ruby and Emerald, I would love to see it. I have my own kind of finished version, but I'm still looking for some inspiration because I don't think it's quite finished yet. Leave a like if you'd like to comment. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our videos, especially since we're going to have both of these decks go against each other and see how well they perform. Look at our socials down in the links below. We have our Twitter, our Twitch, all that kind of stuff where you can follow us, stay up to date. The Discord, have a fantastic Discord community where we're all talking about Lorcana and planning for things, and they have tournaments, all that kind of stuff. It's a really, really great community to be a part of. And as always, guys, I hope you have a magical day.